I just think we decided to talk about Wonder Woman first. And that was the one that I had sort of dragged my feet on watching. Of course, I knew what the Wonder Woman show was. I'd never been super interested in it because I've never been a big DC guy. But I watched the pilot, which was a TV movie. And also the TV movie gives you as a studio, as a television network, an out to say, it wasn't a flop. We had a great movie. You know, that's just a movie. That's all it was. You know, we didn't intend for it to go to series, right? You get a little sort of a backdoor out if something is a failure. But Wonder Woman was excellent. I thought the Wonder Woman pilot was really good. Is the rest of the show on par with the quality you see in the pilot?
At least the first 2 years, yes. The third year is very different because it switches to modern times. Yeah. And as most shows do, as they drag on, it loses a lot of that luster and wonder. But the first year is pretty spectacular. And the second year is pretty on par with that. The pilot, though, stands out as a gem of these. This is definitely absolutely. This was my favorite one. This was my favorite of the lot we're going to be talking about tonight.
You're so right. It is the best, clearly, without a doubt. It actually has cinematography, which I think some of these lack. There's wonderful lighting and shadow in all of the sets. There's great little lighting tricks, like when they think Steve Trevor is dead and they take a toast, drink to his legacy, and they turn to his empty desk chair and like a little like halo-ish light comes around it. The movie, the Wonder Woman show is incredibly aware of itself. The only thing I could compare it to, I think, is maybe Barbie, which is a movie that's also hyper aware of like what it is and what it's doing and what the character means in the culture and how to approach it. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like hyper aware of like, okay, we're doing the Wonder Woman show. Let's ham it up. The introductory, the intro is spectacular. Yes. That's sort of like Roy Lichtenstein comic book pop art. It was really fun how the show just embraced the comic book roots to kind of give you an idea of like, hey, we're in on it. But they don't. Wonder Woman is never a joke, right? No, it's everyone around her is funny and goofy, and it's a comedy, right? There's a great joke I remember in there with the Nazis where they say, the plan didn't work out. We interrogated everybody. They all confessed. Right?
Yes.
Just little fun bits there. I mean, it really was high quality.
The Nazi grandma who goes to shoot her with a machine gun at the exhibition there.
And that, by the way, special effects, fight scenes, almost leaps and bounds ahead of anything else we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes, very much.
The bullet training, I couldn't believe the money that they spent on what is it, Amazon Island, or what do they call it?
Paradise Island.
Paradise Island, but it's called something else.
The traditional name up until I don't know when, but probably I would say the mid 80s when they did the George Perez revamp after Crisis. That's probably when it changed. I could be wrong. Someone could cite me wrong, but that's when they changed it to Themyscira.
Right. I remember that from the Wonder Woman, the movie. But to be totally honest, the movie we got in 2013 or whenever is basically just a remake of this pilot episode.
Yeah.
To some extent. I mean, they really stick close to the comics. And they're able to be a sort of feminist show while also being humorous about it.
Yes.
And then we get sort of like double standard behavior and cattiness and a little bit of bitchiness from like her mom on like the female island, right? It's very tongue in cheek. I loved it. I thought it was spectacular and looked beautiful. I don't know if that's just because it's been remastered on HBO Max. I don't know if you remastered Spider-Man 77, if it would look good too. I doubt it.
Cap hasn't been remastered at all either. That was
God. No, that's a VHS garbage transfer DVD. Yeah. It's terrible. But like, I think about that shot that I was watching when I was watching The Return of the Incredible Hulk. And there's a scene where there's two guys playing racquetball, and they're just in a racquetball courtroom, which is like, white room. They filmed a scene in a similar location in the movie Outland. They happened to make it 10 times more interesting. They just filmed these two guys talking to each other, shot, reverse shot, in a white background.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you thinking? This is terrible. Right? Yeah. Wonder Woman looks sumptuous. It's spectacular. I really enjoyed it.
I like this a lot. And I haven't watched this show in a while. I watched almost the entire run of it several years back. And it was really a lot of fun to revisit this. I will say why it works, besides all the things you mentioned, which is spot on. Accuracy to the source material is a huge boon to this movie. Not just representing the origin accurately, which it does, and it's the more classical origin which has been thrown out in recent years. Like, yes, it's the more or less the same in that Steve Trevor crash lands on Paradise Island. He's rescued by the Amazons, and Diana escorts him back to man's world. But a lot of the in between has been changed and altered in kind of ways that I don't really see why. They've totally gotten rid of the contest, which is, I think, a really fun and interesting aspect to it. Which is
great
where
way to demonstrate her powers.
Yeah, but it's also Hippolyta, Diana's mother, tells her, you are not to participate in the contest because you're my daughter. I do not want you to embark on this dangerous journey. I would rather, we're going to get the best Amazon to send him back. And yeah, you probably are the best Amazon, but I know that's why I don't want you to participate. But she goes against her mother's wishes. She disguises herself. She proves herself to be the best among the entire population without any hint of, favoritism or nepotism. She earns that. And in the new one, if I recall correctly, and this is what it's been in the comics, I believe so also, is that she just steals the equipment and says, to hell with this, I'm going to take the equipment and take him back to man's world.
Oh, she doesn't need approval from anybody.
She doesn't earn it. She doesn't win it. She just says, I'm going. I'm the best. And it's like, well, you are the best, but like, this is to show you are.
It reminded me a lot of Barbie in that you are able to say something about the sexes when you show a specific strange science fiction world in which women are cloistered away, and then you see the entrance of a man. It's almost like how the Ken Barbie relationship within like the magical world of Barbie in that Barbie film. Have you seen that yet?
I have not seen the Barbie movie.
Okay, that was just my thinking. Like it's a great way to use science fiction and fantasy to comment on the sexes, right? Because she makes that comment about how, well, I felt things I never have before when I first saw Steve Trevor, the very attractive. Now, who's the actor? You probably know.
Lyle Waggoner.
What's his deal?
His
I liked him.
Filmography. I don't recall what else he's been in. All I remember from the rest of him is either he or his family formed the company that does like the trailers or wagons that actors use. They call them like star wagons. I remember seeing those when I was.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they're like, why are they called star wagons? Not just because it's a wagon, but it's Waggoner.
No way. Behind it. Well, he's fun. He's a good sport.
Yes, for being basically the damsel in distress.
Totally,
is what he is, and it's totally fun. It's
a great recipe,
it.
And then you have Lynda Carter, who obviously is incredibly beautiful, right?
Yes,
but I wasn't prepared for how fun she was going to be and likable. Mm-hmm. You get all those great moments with the superhero, which is something that like a show like Spider-Man should have been able to do, but totally fell on its face to where you have her interacting with the police or with the shopkeeper. And she's like, totally a fish out of water and everyone's reacting to her. It all works like crazy. You could have just ported that script over to the new film and it would have worked totally fine.
And they did some of that. They did some of that in the new movie. Definitely.
Yeah, they did.
Walking around London. But it's more fun here for whatever reason.
It's incredibly fun.
Although I have to say Gal Gadot is a very, very good Wonder Woman. I'm a big fan of her work on the character, but there's something very special about Lynda Carter and her portrayal here. There's a sort of like a naivete, a little bit of an innocence there, but like a very strong woman, but not afraid to let her sensitive side show either.
Yeah, and I don't want to. She has almost like a, there's been a lot of discussion about, I can't remember what it's called. There's some sort of fat that certain women have in their faces that like it has sort of a cherubic like look. And a lot of women actresses in Hollywood are getting this removed so they can have like an incredibly sharp, like cheekbones.
Yeah.
She doesn't do that. It's very appealing and cute. Courtney says, that Waggoner guested a lot on the Carol Burnett show. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Along with Art Carney and who else would it be? Arthur and all those other guys.
He probably was on many other.
Probably on Hollywood Squares, right?
Yeah.
But no, she's very beautiful. She's an incredibly enjoyable, likable presence. What was the legacy of the show? I mean, after we watched the pilot, this show was important.
Well, it was, but like many other things, it kind of fizzled out by the end of the series run. And Wonder Woman was never seen again in live action until Batman v Superman, which is kind of fascinating. It kind of just went away. It was a kind of like a fad that died out pretty fast. I mean, obviously she was prominent in animation for all the time in between. Super Friends was around, and then Justice League, but she never really got her due again until she came back in the movies. I do think it's interesting to note that there was, before this, we almost didn't get this version of the Wonder Woman story. We almost got a very different movie. 1 year before this movie premiered on ABC, there was another Wonder Woman TV pilot that came and went and was a total flop. And that starred tennis star Kathy Lee Crosby. And what this was the exact opposite. Oh, I think we lost George. But what this Kathy Lee Crosby Wonder Woman pilot movie was the exact opposite of the Lynda Carter show. What this means is that in the late 1960s, are you back?
Yeah, sorry.
So it's okay. You're still using the Wi-Fi?
I knew you could do it.
You still
no, I got a new modem today too. They're just absolutely pounding me. You know what I mean?
So I was saying, there was a TV movie in 1974 with Kathy Lee Crosby that was inspired by the late 60s comic book version of Wonder Woman. Are you familiar with that? When Denny O'Neil came in and totally revamped the character and said, I'm going to fix Wonder Woman just like I fixed Batman. And he's like, let's get rid of her costume. Let's get rid of her powers. Let's make her like the Mod Squad, martial artist, Kung Fu, I Ching. And that was a total...
That's what they called it, the I Ching? Is that what they referred to the outfit as?
I Ching, I believe, was one of the characters in the book, if I recall. It was like her mentor, her martial arts mentor. I could be wrong. I could not be misremembering this, but
the I Ching is like a Chinese game
like
of
a
chance.
mantra
it's almost like a tarot cards for Chinese people. It's in the Man in the High Castle book.
Okay. I believe that was the name of her mentor, but I could be wrong. I haven't read those in a long time because they're horrible.
But I know she had that like sort of like Mod Squad. Oh, I don't need to wear that sexist unitard, swimsuit anymore. I've got my.
She wore like a pantsuit, like a white pantsuit or white jumper suit.
Yep.
The costume in the movie is a little bit different. It kind of reminds me of the first Captain America outfit in his movie, sort of in that style.
Right.
But anyway, that was a flop. Surprisingly, they said, let's try again and let's do something totally different. Let's stay true to the source material. Let's make it a little tongue-in-cheek. So that's what I really appreciate is the tone here. And I'm usually, if you ever hear my commentary about modern superhero movies, I'm very against like the jokiness and the comedic aspect of a lot of these things. But I think you can find the right balance, which is if you're being kind of campy, tongue-in-cheek, but you're not making fun of the material. You're kind of just expressing about how kind of silly and bizarre all of this is, which it is.
Yeah.
There's no way to get around that. But if you treat the main character and the actual story seriously and kind of have silly events happen around it and certain characters who are allowed to act silly, it really works. And that's what we see here.
Well, we have modern superhero films that aspire to be like dramas, or they at least present themselves that way. That they want you. There are moments where they want you to be sad or have feel like there are stakes, but then they undercut their own world building with like these little goofy jokes. There's no reason for a show to call attention to itself as a comic book anymore. Everyone's so used to the idea of comic books being so much so that Guardians of the Galaxy was sold on just the fact that it had a Marvel logo over it. Exactly. Nobody knows the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book. But this is I was surprised too in reading about the history that they gave it a second shot. That was surprising to me, that they knew that they had something there, but that the overtly Ms. Magazine sort of Wonder Woman was not going to cut it.
No.
Right. That was cool. So.
And it's got everything. I mean, even the invisible jet is in here, which is crazy when you think about it.
Great effects.
Did they even do that I know they didn't do it in the first movie, but was that in the Wonder Woman 1984? I can't even remember.
That one.
I don't think it was, but I'm a little lost on that.
I remember really enjoying the Wonder Woman film though with Gal Gadot. I liked
the first one. Yeah. The
second
one.
I really did. Yeah, I didn't see the second one.
You really didn't see Wonder Woman 1984?
No, the word on it was so bad, and I just didn't see it. I'm sorry.
It's not that bad, but it's not that great either, which is surprising that Jeff Johns co-wrote the screenplay for that, since he's like the DC like guru. But that's another story.
He's like a guy that is cool.
He's like one of the best comic book writers of the modern era, in my opinion.
Got it.
I was going to say also, the pilot. This movie was written by this guy named Stanley Ralph Ross. This guy wrote a lot of the 1960s Adam West Batman show. So if you notice a stylistic connection, there you go.
Absolutely, there is, but it's and you know what? Those old Batmans. To hear everyone talk shit about that is just crazy, because they're great. They're great,
and they are an accurate representation of Batman comics of that era. There's no denying that. There's no denying that. You can't get around that. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation.
Hold on just one second before we move on here. I meant to grab a prop. Did you ever read this book?
Oh, yes. I have that book. Yep. Yeah.
This is a really intriguing book. I think anyone that is enjoying this show would like it. It's The Secret History of Wonder Woman by Jill Lepore. And it talks a lot about William Moulton Marston, who purportedly invented the lie detector test.
Yes.
Though that could be a little apocryphal. It's sort of like filmed to where there were like many inventors at once. But he had sort of like a weird home life, right?
Oh, that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, can you speak to this? I mean, he.
Well, I was going to say that book. That book was interesting, but it's a little much. It's a little much in the weeds. I think if you want to see like if you want to get a more concise view of this, there's a movie actually. It's called Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. Came out around the same time as the Wonder Woman movie, and that kind of gives him a biographical film. And yeah, his home life, when you speak of, is a little complicated. He basically lived in a threesome for most of his life. He had a wife and a mistress. And
he was the original. What do they call that now?
Like a bigamist?
No, there's like a cool Silicon Valley word for it now, because that guy who ripped everybody off, Sam, whatever,
Bankman-Fried, yeah,
SBF. Yeah, he was living in one of these things too. They called it like a
polyamorous
group or something like that. This guy was way ahead of the curve on that. He had like a wife, and then he had like two sort of like a cousin or something that lived with them, and it was a weird situation all around. But he did have the girls that they wore metal bracelets akin to Wonder Woman around all the time, right? And there's been a lot of speculation.
Yeah, he was into kinky stuff like bondage.
Been a lot of speculation on his sex life, because it is shocking to go back through some of those old Wonder Woman comic books and see how many times she's tied up with her own lasso, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Lasso of Truth. This is a guy who is very interested in that, having been the inventor of the lie detector test. Does everybody know this already? Is this old hat stuff? But it was interesting to read, you know. It was cool. And it was also sort of an interesting, you know, what a sort of proto-feminist he was, which is...
Yeah, very interesting.
Very much...
Yeah.
That old hat stuff about how, if women ran everything, there'd be no war and everything would be great. Yeah. Yeah, good owner says thruple. There you go.
That's why I really do like DC more than Marvel. And it's not the popular opinion, but part of the reason is that all the characters feel kind of incongruent together, because they're all created by very different people at very different times. The Marvel universe does feel like a cohesive whole, more so. The characters were all created relatively around the same time by the same small group of people. Mm-hmm. I think it lends itself more to kind of having these weird dynamics when you have characters like Wonder Woman interacting with Superman and Batman that don't belong in the same world together.
They really don't know.
I don't know. To me, that just kind of leads it into a more interesting possibilities. But that's my
Marvel opinion. Has the X-Men who really don't belong.
Yes,
in my opinion. I mean, they should be their own thing, probably.
But it's more interesting when, for me at least, when they throw the X-Men into these situations with all the other characters, because they don't belong. And Secret Wars is a good example of that, where they kind of section themselves off, but they're still involved.
My issue with the X-Men, I think, just from a 1,000-foot view perspective, is that they're not congruous with the world, because the major thrust of the idea of the X-Men is that everyone is like racist towards them because they're mutants. But why do they only hate the X-Men? Just because they're born with their powers? They love everybody else except Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems that's never been really elucidated as to why people are totally okay with people that were, you know, mutated in horrible experiments and versus you're just born with that power.
Yeah, then you're the worst.
Yeah.
I don't. That never made sense to me. It always made sense for me for the X-Men to be cloistered in kind of their own universe where that was the case. But that's
I have my Captain America mug here, you know.
Damn, dude, sipping. We're gonna get to Captain America later. I think we're gonna hop into. Do you have anything else to say about Wonder Woman? Big ups for me. Very positive. Watching this last, I was like, wow.
Some of the interesting guest star choices. Cloris Leachman as Hippolyta, Diana's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of weird to see her in a dramatic performance. Usually think of her in straight up comedy. As Mary Tyler Moore show as the nosy landlord Phyllis Lindstrom.
Right.
And let's see who else. Was it Red Buttons? Like
Red Buttons, yeah.
Like totally weird that he's in this show as this kind of shyster Nazi that tries to get rid of Wonder Woman in like a very capitalistic way, which is like, let's sign her up for the circus and take her on the road and have her perform all over the country, and then she won't be in our way. And let's make money off it.
They packed a lot of entertainment there at about an hour, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
It's a great show, and it looks spectacular, and the sets are great, and the costumes are great. Everyone looks beautiful. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can say the same for Spider-Man 1977. This is a cheap deal.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think it is cheap. I think it's actually.
Oh, really?
I think they spent a lot of money on Spider-Man, from what I've read. Is
that correct? Well, I could see how they did it with this. Okay, so I don't want to be totally down on Spider-Man right out of the gate.
Wait, before I wanted to do like a grading thing as we went along. Like,
sure.
We talked about like how to grade these, like two different ways. One would be as a film, as a work of television, entertainment. How do you rate it? I don't know if you want to do like A through F or what. And then I would do like, how does it correspond to like the comic book source material? So for Wonder Woman, I would actually give an A and an A for both of those.
Yeah, I think you're exactly correct. And if someone were to ask you, give me an example of superhero television, you would offer this one up.
Yes. And I would but
Hulk probably too.
Hulk is a different animal, and we'll get there.
Very much so.